Hello, and welcome to This Conversation Matters, a weekly show about the social issues shaping our communities, from race and inequality to justice, economic opportunity, and overall well-being. I'm Cherie Curry. Each week, I speak with experts and people with lived experience to help you better understand why these issues matter in our lives.
We are a multicultural America, that it's undeniable. And when you talk about commitment from leadership, if leaders are not viewing inclusion the same way that they view their sales numbers, then they're not leveraging the biggest growth opportunity that they have when it comes to closing the gap, that $1 trillion gap when it comes to inclusion.
That's Merary Simeon, a Fortune 50 human resources executive and co-founder of Zara Consulting, a company that equips leaders with the skills and strategies that help advance multicultural women in the workplace. She's also the co-host of the What Rules podcast and my guest today on This Conversation Matters. She explains why it's important to not only support multicultural women in the workplace, but also train leaders how best to do so. Merary?
So one of the things that we're going to address is, and you've probably seen this in a lot of the research, is that organizations are losing out on over $1 trillion in opportunity, and that is related to inclusion. So one of the things that we're putting out there and that we're working towards is bridging that gap and bringing leaders and multicultural women together. And a lot of the work that we're doing and we're focusing on is removing those blind spots to build those bridges between the multicultural women and their managers, and really helping leaders and the multicultural women be more authentic and leverage their values and really foster that inclusive relationship and workplace culture. So that's a lot of what we're working on, and why we are kind of saying, hey, yes, it's great to have DEI, but as you and I have seen, is leaders can't just say it. And I think I saw this in an Accenture report. They have to do it and they have to drive it. And at the end of the day, that's kind of where we're focusing on from a Zara Consulting perspective. But it's all based on the findings, right? You and I both know a lot of companies have slowed down, as well as schools and other organizations that continue to move forward. And I believe that the companies that future-proof their organization are the ones that are going to continue to leverage the benefits of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to me, it's really looking at where we are today. We are a multicultural America, that it's undeniable. And if we really want to close that gap, it's going to be critical, especially that $1 trillion gap. Who doesn't want to? And when you talk about commitment from leadership, the other piece that I think about all the time, yes, leaders got to say and really be genuine about it, but they have to hold themselves accountable and hold their direct reports accountable. And to me, the way to do that is making sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are part of the growth strategy. If leaders are not viewing inclusion the same way that they view their sales numbers, then they're not leveraging the biggest growth opportunity that they have when it comes to closing the gap, that $1 trillion gap when it comes to inclusion. So that's kind of how I see it.
So we were talking about, about that diversity, equity, inclusion being part of the growth strategy. And you have where, right, the businesses, they're looking at everything is all about the bottom line. So one example that I used before with people is if the white population wasn't declining in, they wouldn't be coming after our dollars, right? Right now we're going to focus on people of color. So how is it, though, that we can get the companies and the organizations to look at it as, regardless of a demographic shift, that this is important because the money's there anyway from the buying power of the people of color. It's there regardless of the demographic shift, but it is growing, obviously, if our population is growing. Any thoughts on it from that perspective?
Yes, and it goes back to having that inclusive leadership, inclusive culture to me. And to your point, it doesn't matter on the shifts on the demographics, but more on the actions that leaders are taking. And when I say actions, is actually doing it. And we focus a lot of the work that I do, it's on research. So I think it was Accenture that came out with a report a while back that said, even though you can ask any leader, and any leader will say, yes, culture is a priority. And it absolutely is, because an organization that has a culture focused on execution or a culture focused on entrepreneurship, those are pieces of a culture that help the organization meet their objectives. It is the same way when it comes to an inclusive culture. Any leader would tell you absolutely having an inclusive culture is important. The issue is that only 21%, based on the research from Accenture, only 21% of leaders are making culture a top priority. And I believe the same thing, about 20% actually have a strategy with an execution plan in place. So to your point, even though inclusion and the bottom line being impacted and all the data that we see out there says that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that, yes, the buying power is increasing for multicultural America if the organizations have a diverse workforce, but they're not inclusive. They're going to continue to erode. They're going to continue to have an unintentional negative impact in the organization's brand, in the organization's workforce, and in the organization's culture, because they are not paying attention to that key focus, which is making it an inclusive culture where everybody can thrive.
Okay.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Okay, thank you. And so let's talk a little bit about, again, like how you started Zara, where you were before, because you were with PepsiCo immediately
Yes.
before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go a little bit of your kind of career journey and then how you made that shift from being within corporate America to then kind of like consulting to corporate America.
Yeah.
Even your childhood growing up from where you were raised and how that may have impacted your career journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I went to a small high school in Dover, New Jersey, where I had no idea what corporate America was. I am the first to graduate college, the first to be in corporate America. And it all started with a teacher, Black teacher, who saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. I had plenty of opportunities to fail. And this teacher said, I want to leverage your strength that to for good. And she got me a job in corporate America at, I believe I was 16, 17 years old. It was my first internship in high school when you did that back then, which I think it's something that organizations should really focus and do, because I'm an example of what you can do with someone that has visibility to those opportunities. And she was my first sponsor. And again, going back to having sponsorship, she was my first sponsor. She met with the another Black woman at corporate America, and she helped me really be part of that internship program. And the rest is history. Once I got in there, I was sponsored by the CHRO, white male, and by other leaders in corporate America who have also been white males and white females. So I say this to really highlight the importance of sponsorship. If it wasn't for if it wasn't for my teacher sponsoring me for this program, and if it wasn't for that CHRO and those other leaders in the organization sponsoring me for these programs, I probably wouldn't be here today, because they sponsored me, they gave me visibility. I did the work and
Mhm.
I excelled in the work. And I was in that company moving throughout the organization for different opportunities for 9 years before I moved to other organizations. And my last organization, I was there for 20 years, where again, it was really based on sponsors and mentors. Here's the thing that, and why I really focused on really supporting and giving back and kind of paying it forward for what that teacher did to me. So as I mentioned, the teacher was a Black female, and the woman who helped me get into corporate, who I reported to at the time, was also a Black female. After that, I never saw another diverse woman in corporate America. So as you can see, this women that sponsored me at the beginning, they were teachers and managers.
Mhm.
And I was very fortunate to have white leaders sponsor me. And that is something that I preach all the time. You need those sponsors. We need to bridge these gaps and these relationships because they have been the biggest voices in my career. But I created my partner, my business partner, and I created the What Rules podcast and Sarah Consulting because we want to create what we want to see in this world. And that's more multicultural women in positions of power. Now, the reason multicultural women didn't help me in corporate America is because they didn't exist in corporate America. And this is where I want to be able to, we want to be able to tell the world it can be done, but we got to be able to do this together. Many times you see organizations training just the diverse woman, but we are not doing anything to help these leaders understand how they can grow, how they can sponsor, how they can mentor, how they can impact the career of a multicultural woman. And for me, it has been, if it wasn't for that sponsorship, for really them taking action, I remember uh, as a high school co-op intern, whatever you want to call it, back then we called it co-ops. I remember the CHRO would say, there would be a project and he'll say, give it to Merary. And I would remember thinking, I don't know how to do this. And he would say, but you will learn.
Okay.
And I did. I learned and I did a phenomenal job. But if he didn't give me that exposure, if he didn't advocate for me, if he didn't see that potential in me, I wouldn't be here. So after 20 years with PepsiCo, I said, hey, and having a great career and great sponsors and mentors in that organization, my business partner and I said, we need to help other leaders, help other multicultural women. And when I say help, it's really opened the doors for them. Because one of the things that I learned in my career is that when a sponsor will sponsor me for any role, he sponsored me because he had the keys to that door. And he also knew that I would be able to get the job done, that I was already educated, that I already had the experience, and all I needed was the opportunity. So that's a little bit more about me in corporate America and really my experiences and why I truly believe in the formula, not just because of the research, because the research is there and the research has been around for a long time, but because I'm a living proof of what powerful sponsorship of what leaders do and what leaders drive and how we can be successful. We need more. We need more leaders like that. I think you probably already heard multicultural women get mentored to death. They say it sometimes. They get mentored a lot, but not sponsored. And while we all need mentors, I still have fabulous mentors. We need sponsors.
Mhm.
Without sponsorship, it's not going to happen. And when I say sponsorship, yes, it's opening those doors, absolutely, and providing those opportunities. But it's also about sponsors are also people that take the action and drive and do not reward bad behavior in the organization from other leaders, as well as give those opportunities. When it comes to talent acquisition, many times people would say, oh, but this person doesn't have the experience. And what I find is that people-based experience based on how they grew up and how they've been able to experience life. And there are many leaders out there who do not know how to translate, let's say, my experiences growing up and my resiliency into the competencies that we need today. And that's where we come in and we help leaders see, for example, when I was doing college recruiting, hey, this person may have not been in sports. They might not have been the captain of their team, but guess what? They have huge collaboration skills, huge leadership skills in how they manage their household in college because they had to take care of their parents or they had to take care of their brothers and sisters, as well as they manage their work. Oh, and by the way, got a higher than 3.5 average in school. So how do you translate those experiences that somebody that may not look like you is bringing into the workplace is huge. And there's a lot of leaders that unfortunately lack that cult. Or fortunately, unfortunately, there's a lot of leaders that do not have that cultural understanding and are unable to translate those competencies that are so beneficial in the workplace, especially when you talk about resiliency, right? I always say this, people like us, people like me, have high resiliency, high resiliency. And I think we're under leveraged when it comes to uh, organizations that have to work with less resources, organizations that have to be resilient, organizations that are turning around businesses, or organizations that want to transform. I believe that based on our experiences, there are competencies there that organizations are not tapping to, and we are kind of been living it and are experts in leveraging and maybe managing the limited resources that we've had and opportunities to be where we are today. So that's the one example on how we can help leaders really bridge that gap and understand how they can make an impact, how they can educate themselves differently, but not just educate yourself, also put into action those behaviors that they learn. And honestly, at the end of the day, is hold people accountable for behaviors. I know so many organizations that have the best strategies out there, the strategies that the McKinseys and the Accentures of the world are saying, this is what you need to do to be successful. And they have them in place and they will win tons of awards. The issue lies that their culture does not allow the population living within the organization to benefit or to even leverage those policies and processes that they have in place. Because unfortunately, organizations are not willing to take a stand on the behaviors that do not support or unintentionally um, hurt or really, I guess, yeah, create fear, psychological safety, whatever you want to call it, to leverage those policies and in place. It's really easy to check the box and say we're doing ABC. It's really easy to bring multicultural people in the workplace. It is the hard part is how can we thrive together, and that's where I believe that my expertise and Sarah Consulting expertise comes in because we've been able not just to live it, but experience it and see what great looks like and how it can be done by really working together as managers and leaders in multicultural women in the organization.
Okay, I
I know that
appreciate.
was a lot, but
No, I love it. I love it. I'm going to give you an example with my day job. I work in communications, and as a marketing communications, and which is also how I see your field and what you're doing now with the podcast and Zara
yeah.
Consulting, that we're there to kind of help guide, right, in terms of thinking about this. We're not HR, we're not but it still kind of plays a part. And the one thing that I see with organizations is when they're they all have those numbers of we can't retain. We first off, it's like we can't find them. They're not there. Okay, well, we got people now who can
Not
help
true. Yeah, I
find
mean,
them.
yes.
And then it's like we can't retain them, but we don't see what efforts they're putting in to try to retain. I can kind of see where maybe like how Zara Consulting can be an organization that can help give them that kind of idea. Hey, here's how to retain them. Here's how to uplift them. So I just kind of want to hear your thought a little bit with like the retention aspect, because I will say I see some of the stuff that's like it's kind of counter to some of the things that we're trying to do as people of color to help them retain the people of color. So do you have a thought on how being inclusive and about that retention aspect as well? So individually, the sponsorships, help. What else can companies do to help with that retention?
The fastest way to lose someone is when you have a beautiful inclusion statement and you reward the wrong behaviors. And what I mean by rewarding the wrong behaviors is, as leaders, you see not inclusive behavior going on in the organization, and it's okay. And then when somebody speaks up against it, they get penalized for it. So to me, organizations that continue to allow organizations that say that they're driving an inclusive culture, they need to reward the inclusive behavior, but they also need to call out that negative behavior and be consistent. It doesn't matter the level. And this is what I go back to. When organizations are looking at this as important as a sales number, that's when you'll see change. If somebody doesn't meet a sales number, there are actions that are taking place. And when somebody meets a sales number, there's rewards. And I really believe that many times organizations are watering down their awards and rewards when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it comes to, and it's not tied to a number, right? And we need to tie that to how are we impacting the bottom line at the end of the day, and make it as important. One of the things that I find is retention. Yes, it could be for a million reasons, but this is why we work with what we say the managers or the champions. There are leaders that leave organizations because the lack of inclusion, the lack of support from their managers. So even though the C-suite is thinking and believing this is what's happening in the organization, they're not drilling down or holding their leadership team accountable. And people are leaving because of their managers, right? I think the other piece is, and you see this a lot through surveys and data and even roundtables, we're asking women, people of color, hey, what do you need to be successful? And those are the things that are not being done. And we kind of water it down. Here's the other piece that I would say for retention. If you're, let's say, targeting retention of multicultural women, focus on that and stay on that and work on that and provide the resources for that, just like you would if you were going after a brand that was suffering in the marketplace. You will shift those resources to support the growth of that brand. And I believe stay focused in that. I think now too many companies are not looking at the data. They're just saying inclusion, which is great. But what are those pain points? Where is it being broken down? And for example, and we talk about this in one of our episodes, the broken rung. Is that a pain point for your company? And if it is, shift those resources and focus there. But now we look at it like we got to fix the world. No, go into those pain points and fix that. If you can fix that, then that's one step towards building a more inclusive, more diverse, and more organization that's equitable. So to me, and being able to talk about those changes, I think, and I believe where people continue to leave is, number one, organizations are now holding people accountable for the negative, uninclusive behaviors.
Mhm.
And then number two, we are really just watering down the strategy and not pinpointing a focus to go after. And three, we are going out there and kind of organizations are going out there and talking about all of the awards that they get in DEI.
Mhm.
And internally, the culture is saying, I don't feel that way. So to me, a way to test that is if the external market is saying you have all of these things that you check the box that you're doing great in from a DEI perspective, internally, do the people feel that way?
Yeah.
And then the other piece is, and I see this all the time when we speak to leaders, is leaders that walk the talk are not going to tolerate the talent doesn't exist. Multicultural America is here and it's here to stay, and the talent is out there. So being able to showcase that in your leadership teams, that alone should be something that leaders and the C-suite should hold themselves accountable for.
Yeah.
If you're waiting for other people to hold you accountable, that's when you'll continue to see people leave because they don't see a path, they don't see a way.
Thank you. And all of this is like, it really resonates with me. And promotion can look like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It could be again in terms of how you broaden what kind of things you're managing. It could also be in the title change and all of that. If I don't want to make everything about race, we don't like when we make things about race. But look, we want to say we want to meet these numbers and we want
Yeah, and I
retention.
would tie it to
But
the business, right? And it's like, hey, this is something that's important and I can help you with that.
right,
And kind of like this is where we're at. I can help you. Because to your point, people will leave when that's a behavior, right? Like a behavior that you're not supporting. I've been here, I'm working, I'm getting the exposure. Um, what is it that's lacking? And a lot of the times, the other reason people leave, and in my experience, is because the leadership, they haven't been trained or to give the to give feedback, developmental feedback. And this is where um, it's critical, and executive coaches are important, but I also believe in having diverse executive coaches to be able, for leaders to be able to provide that feedback. The other piece is organizations, when it comes to the culture, it is not a safe space to provide or even receive the feedback. I think a lot of people treat the feedback, or the culture treats the feedback as is negative. Once I give that person that feedback, they're going to leave. When the reality is, no, we want the feedback. So I think there are companies that give the feedback, but then they don't know what to do with it. It's like, hey, you're not doing well with this. No, what are the actions? And this is the piece that I talk about that we help too, is how do we help, how Zara, we help leaders. Okay, this is the feedback you're giving. This is the actions that you should help the person and how you can support them at the end of the day. And then I think, to your point, okay, having a Latino and then you're the one there, is like, how are you helping? I think a lot of people feel like, oh, if I start bringing all the Latinos or all the blacks and whatever. Look, I remember getting called out and getting complaints written about me because my whole team was diverse. And
right.
I'm like, tell me which one of them is not good at their job, and then
Yeah,
we'll talk about it. I know where the diverse talent lies. I know where those expertise lie, and I know the people around me. So when I am hiring and I'm looking, I know where to go find them.
mhm,
So at the end of the day, for somebody to say, oh, they don't exist, I'm like, you're probably looking in the wrong place. Well, not probably. I know you're looking in the wrong places, but I can help. We can help you. Like, the community of people can help you. It is really about helping leaders see top talent that looks like us,
yeah,
so that their bias and their mind shifts can change. And that can only happen when managers, and I focus on multicultural women, that's my focus, and multicultural women come together and learn about each other.
yeah,
Like, I would tell you, because I was in high school when I first started that job, I didn't know any better. So I probably told that CHRO things that I know I did, that he was probably like, oh my God, right? But I really think because I didn't know any better, I was so vulnerable that he actually learned so much about me and my experiences growing up that he was that he committed to seeing me through. And like I said, I didn't know any better, but he was so open to learning from me that made a huge difference. He realized that I could do it. And like I said, I would have not been successful if I didn't have sponsors. I remember when I first came into PepsiCo, white leader, the region vice president, Dave Scalera, that's his name. He was like, he took the time to ensure that I was successful, taught me the business, taught me the relationships and the whole culture of the organization. Oh, and then the other one was my other leader, who was a white female, Tracy Faber. They, what they did was incredible, right? Those leaders took an interest and they said, we're going to help her. She's the only Latina in the whole vice president or,
Right.
leadership team.
Right.
So we're going to take an interest. And it wasn't that I didn't know what I was doing, it's that they knew the company culture and they said, we need to make sure that we surround you with the right support so that where the hidden potholes are, so that who the right stakeholders are. Those are the unwritten rules that many times when we come into an organization, because many of us are first time corporate leaders that don't know, because the way we grow up is more on what I say is what you can expect. My word is all you have and you're committed to it. And many times in corporate America, it's a lot of red tape. And you need to be, and not just, it's not red tape, but there's hidden rules. First, you go to this manager, to that person, or this is the person with influence. You don't know that. And a lot of the times is who's helping that person figure that out. And I'm of the thought of, I had to learn the hard way. I don't want nobody else to learn the hard way because they could be more productive if they have that information up front. And what I need right now is somebody that's productive and able to make an impact. I don't need somebody to have to go through what I went through. And that's kind of the way that I look. And when I lead my teams in Zara, it's like, hey, how can we help? Yes, the multicultural person, but honestly, what we're here for is helping leaders advance, because if they help advance, they're going to continue to grow, not just in their numbers and productivity and sales and revenue, but they're going to continue to grow and really learn more about the culture, multicultural America, and be more impactful. At the end of the day, they're going to leave a legacy that not too many people can say that they've impacted in the new multicultural America.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. You mentioned the rules. Let's tie those unwritten rules to the What Rules podcast
Yeah.
and the reason for that title. So can you kind of explain the What Rules podcast is, why that title and how that ties into your mission for it?
Yes, we started the podcast. And one of the things that we found after we interview mostly women in the C-suite, multicultural women in the C-suite. And what we found, and it became a theme, is that they had all broken cultural rules in their organizations, or cultural rules within themselves. And this is what we found that was really helpful. So I would say, I believe most of the women, probably 90% of the women, say that they all had sponsors, which were white males. And I think a lot of the times as multicultural women, we look for women that look like us, and it's hard to find because the numbers are still low. And the other piece is and you know this, research shows that if you see it, you can be it. Many of the women have broken the rule, which is create what you want to see. And that's not easy, right? So that's another rule that they break. And then the other one is not doing it alone. And this is from a cultural perspective. We are multicultural people are very resilient. And a lot of the time is because we had to be resourceful and do a lot on our own and figure it out on our own, especially even growing up in corporate America or having been in there. And what we are saying is you don't have to do it alone. this is what other people do, right? You create networks, and I don't mean just any network, is network with the power grid. And the power grid many times do not look like us. So, and then the other piece is be positive, right? Like, and this is not something that we talk about, but it's more about when you're creating what you want to see, believe in it, right? You got to believe that that's there. But the other piece, going back to the podcast, sorry,
Mm.
that we talk about is it's being courageous, and just really taking those taking those steps without hesitation, right? Shifting without hesitation to take those opportunities that not many people would take. And we talk about this because it's things that we've lived, and we've also found the women talking about this. So it's really about what rules. Is not We're not breaking legal rules. We're breaking those rules that society has put on us. We're breaking and we're challenging those rules that we put on ourselves as women, multicultural women, that maybe through our culture in our home countries, or culture in America, that has said you can only be this or that, or even, family culture. So that's why we call it what rules. We're like, what rules? Like,
Yeah.
many of those rules are unwritten rules, and we're challenging them. And that's what we found, and that's why we gave it the name what rules.
Okay.
Because these are the rules that leaders and multicultural women need to break in order to succeed. And it's all about doing it together.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll say as an aside, the one of the other women I interviewed for this, and she's local here in Minneapolis, where I live. She created a consulting company similar to yourself, Ray McKinsey Group. She named it after her daughter, 20 something years ago. Then her offshoots, so like you, well, she has several offshoots, but you have the What Rules podcast. One of her offshoots, she created the People of Color Career Fair. And so I like how I'm gonna say like you have these similarities in terms of helping to empower other people and helping to give that advice in terms of their own career. So you're kind of doing that through your podcast, and she kind of does that through, yeah, helping make these connections through this People of Color Career Fair. So
For us, so we have the podcast, and then the other big one is the leadership conference, because that to us is really the rule breaker. There's nobody out there that's bringing managers and their women together to bridge the gap in a big way, and all that good stuff. But that's where companies can, if they want to really make a big difference, this is where it's at, because this is for both. We are serving multicultural women, but the big change makers here that are helping is both. If the managers don't attend, or if the leader or champions don't attend, then we're not doing it,
okay.
because it's not just because it's not just her. It's not her problem to solve. It's all of our problems to solve. And
Okay.
that's what we bring everybody together. It's not just one. And we make it in a positive way. Like, I've had positive experiences with, with people that don't look like me. And that's what we want to show, because, as you know, media, everybody else, they make it negative. That's not who we are. And we know what happens when you're negative, and when you about things, nobody wants to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what we're saying is we make it a safe space. And that's why when we did the conference that I was telling you Monique participated in, she did the workshops with the multicultural women, and then I did it. Yes, I'm multicultural Latina, but I did it with them, and we didn't record that part. We didn't have media there, because we wanted it to also be a safe space for them, and say, okay, what's bothering you? Because we all know all this stuff. Let's talk about it, and then let me help you kind of bring that forward. And the same thing with Monique, with the multicultural women, because I think a lot of the times we say we want to create a safe space, and are we really? So this was why it was important to be an external, us working with the leaders and the other folks, so that it is safe for everybody. Because I think a lot of leaders, they don't know how to talk about it, or they're not talking about it because they don't feel it's safe. And the people that they're talking about it probably don't have the experience to help them deal with it the right way, and how they should manage it. And that's what we're here for, to help them, so that ultimately there's more multicultural women in positions of power, because there's so many of us and we're not there yet.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And thanks for what you're doing, and then, the only thing that I would say to you is don't get tired of doing good. God always has a plan, and whatever it is, you keep doing keep feeling your purpose. So
that
I'll be
other
rooting
woman,
for you.
thank you.
They need more women like you and I in these spaces. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
But and so anyway, we'll
thank
talk
you so
another
much.
time. Thank you for your time and everything. So
Okay,
all right,
bye-bye.
talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening today. I'm Cherie Curry, and this has been This Conversation Matters on Power 104.7, supporting the mission of the Minnesota chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. Follow us on Instagram at NABJMN and me at Cherie Curry Media. And be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. Let's keep the conversation going.
Hi, I'm McCall, and every week we take you beyond the story. An NABJ Minnesota program brought to you by All About the Culture and Power 104.7 FM. Beyond the Story introduces you to business owners, community leaders, and media professionals. Join us Tuesday evening for Beyond the Story.
Today, we're speaking with Samantha Honglong, journalist at Sahan Journal. She speaks on the future of journalism. So, Samantha, should future journalists be scared or hopeful for the future?
Well, I think it's a mix of both. I think, for example, in my role, right, I'm a journalist and I'm working in journalism, but it took, when I was a student, I was always questioning, is this the right path for me? Because of all the attacks on the press, all of the pressures that come with being a journalist. But I think it's also very hopeful because, during this time that we've been, this very crazy time that we've been facing in Minnesota, I think it feels like you're helpless, but then, you go to work and you're doing work that matters, and it's shaping the narrative, it's impacting people, it's able to inform people of resources and dangers in their community, and I think that's a very powerful thing, and journalism is a very powerful thing, and so to have a role in that is very hopeful, and being able to play a part of protecting freedom of speech and protecting those who are vulnerable through your storytelling is a very valuable and worthwhile thing.
I'm McCall, and this has been Beyond the Story, where the story